Welcome, everyone, to another Drink While You Think. I'm one of your co-hosts, Kenji.
I'm Matthew.
Yes, he is. I don't know why he's not sitting outside. It is beautiful fall weather here in Atlanta.
No, I got to work on my Wi-Fi mesh network that I just got before I can do that, probably. So
yeah, maybe.
I'll put that in next weekend.
Maybe. You drinking anything today that's kind of fall-like, or what do you got?
Better.
Oh.
My next door neighbors, one of my great neighbors, was they actually live in the Airbnb next to us. They went during COVID to Texas, to their hometown, and they were kind enough to bring back some local brews. So they brought a pale ale from Dripping Springs for me. How good is that to have neighbors that they brought a 6-pack, they brought queso, and they brought not to be confused with cheese dip on the East Coast, and then they brought salsa, and they're like, just because they're like, okay. So they're the neighbors that do all the stuff with the movie industry. So they've been just crushed by this, but they came from Austin, and then they've been in Atlanta for the last 3 years because of all the movie boom. So anyway,
nice,
that's cool.
Nice. What? Tell me the beer one more time. Show it to me.
It's called 1092 Pale Ale.
Okay.
And it's from Twisted X Brewing in Dripping Springs, which is outside of Austin.
We'll have to see if Trey knows about that one. He probably does, knowing him. So that's awesome. So pale ale. Okay, cool. Pour some of that off. Get ready to drink that. I've got today. Look at this. How could you not want to buy that beer if you saw it looking at you? And just some just kind of pretty German girl, kind of like, yeah. It's a Westphalaner Superior German Pilsner. We'll find out whether it's superior or not. Well, Superior Pilsner, Premium Pilsner. Yeah, don't know anything about it. So we're just going to give it a go. But I mean, that intriguing, the pretty blue eyes staring at you. I thought, okay, that's interesting and unique. Couldn't find a real good tie-in to any industry news, but I'm like, oh, I'll get that. We'll give it a shot. So
sometimes it's just about.
Yeah, this is more kind of marketing. How is your West Texas IPA? Or sorry,
it's a pale ale, but so it's a good one. It's a good, smooth drinking one. So
is it real too hoppy for you, or is it okay?
It's okay. So I'm surviving. So I like it.
This is pretty good. It's pretty,
As
cheers,
normal. Dude. Me with your glass and me with my can. I'm good.
Cheers. I get the aroma. 5.1%. So that doesn't too crazy. Okay. Pretty good. Okay.
Mine's a lot lighter than that. Oh no. 5.6.
5.6. Okay. It wouldn't be too much more less than a 5.1. Okay. We've been out for the past couple of weeks. We've had a couple of things going on and such, but not a ton of news. Except this week, all of a sudden, I was going into today thinking, man, there's not a whole lot of news to talk about. And all of a sudden, we got a whopper delivered into our inbox last night, which probably many, I assume, accountants, many clients, many customers did from one of our tech stack partners, which is interesting. So Expensify last night. I think this is going to be a hot topic of conversation, really kind of interesting. I'll pull up my screen. I think others may have received this. I think I saw in the news that 10 million people received this, but here was the email that came in from Dave Barrett, who's the CEO at Expensify. But look at that. Expensify, protect democracy, vote for Biden. And then David goes through fairly lengthy, just kind of his thoughts about Biden and Trump. But yeah, this is caught kind of the world a little bit by storm. I know you got it as well too in your inbox.
I've got several copies with different email addresses I have.
Lots of copies. We've had team members forwarding it. It's been talked about already a lot in the accounting community. It's being picked up. I have a couple news outlets here. It's been picked up by a few different outlets. The first time where I saw it was Business Insider, but I think that one's got a pay link on it. So Yeah, Fast Company's got it here. Expensify CEO implores customers to vote for Biden in an explosive mass email. That's a good way to put it. I don't know. Let's see if it switches here. You see this one here? Well, this is interesting. Expensify's good intentions and weird execution. Really easy. I mean, people are going to hear about this by the time this kind of all drops.
I like that. I like that take. I like that second line. Fine line between companies saying what it thinks and delivering a lecture.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah. Let's talk about, this is something really fascinating to talk about. I don't know, when you saw it, what were that's a weird email to get. It's not the normal ones we all get, and all of our inboxes get hit up a lot. What were your first thoughts about it?
Well, the first thought was the biggest problem I see is people kind of driving people apart, right? Like in like the discourse in the U.S. is just kind of off the chart poor from a respecting other people's opinion perspective. I guess I come from a family where, a huge portion of the family is Republican and another huge portion is Democrat, right, of my family.
Yeah.
So I have this deep love and appreciation and respect for people that are voting in both directions in this election. And I just have a deep love and respect for them. Like you have to respect them because they're good human beings. They have good thoughts. So to see if they had just stopped it at vote, like I'm totally, I don't like it as an email, just philosophically, like put it in a blog post and that's great, right? Put it in a blog post.
Would it have caught your attention though, had it just been vote, do you think?
It would have, I'm not sure philosophically if I would have liked it. Like I would have been more of a fan of it if it was vote, right? Like really think vote.
But may not have caught your attention though, as much as this. This definitely was
it probably annoyed me as much because it went out to all of our customers, right? That we're recommending these people. And that's a little bit political for an expense, for what you're doing with people that we're connecting. Yeah. So I probably prefer it as a blog post, or something like that, where you can put it out there and people can go or don't go if they want in a political. I think that's what more people do. They do their investment, but an email to a list that uses a product. I don't know how he's not going to get 5 million unsubscribes if he sent it to 10 million people, and the country's pretty much 50-50, right? Or at least 40-40. The country's 40-40 with 20 in the middle, right?
I guess, yeah. It's just interesting. When I first got it, I'm not a big email guy, so I tend to. I'm flipping through email to see how fast I can delete it. Just make sure there's nothing in it. I got to do something. And that one, I was like, "What is this?" And I read through it and was just like, "Wow, that is." It caught my attention, no doubt about it. Probably no email has in a while, and so I think that. I guess I kind of was very conflicted with it too. Wow, that captured my attention. Also, I felt like this is, David Barrett is really convicted. He's being bold here. It's been a place where, as we've talked a lot in our own firm, in our own diversity and inclusion, classes about responsibilities that if you see something that you believe is wrong, to speak up, right? And I'm a huge First Amendment advocate. I can't stand, thinking about people being muzzled or things, but I also was just really uncomfortable with it too. That I just, maybe because I was sitting in the spot of also you and I as both co-founders, I don't know if that's a reflection of my lack of kind of boldness there or conviction, or I'm also trying to do something else by protect our business for our team and for our customers and things like that. So it's just my first one was a little bit confusion. I like that's where I pulled that article headline up about a weird execution. And weird doesn't have to be bad, but it struck me as weird for sure.
Yeah, I think if his point was to get people talking about him, it worked. his point was get people to vote for Biden or switch from a third party candidate to Biden or switch from somebody from Trump to Biden, I can't imagine that email was successful in that campaign.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting, like, what was the point? Like, if we were like talking about, should we send something out to our clients and employees about what we think? Like, we would at least think, like, will this, I guess maybe his theory is like, as long as people are talking about it, we're talking about this week now. Like, we wouldn't have talked about politics ever. Like, you and I never talk about, we don't even talk about politics with each other, much less, like, I don't think anybody at our firm I think probably people guess, that I vote both ways. If you polled them, they would probably think kind of 2/3 would think one thing, 1/3 would think another. It'd be interesting, right? So,
it let me, I'm really lucky to have some good friends in the space who are firm owners. And so a lot of us have been in dialogue. And one of the questions I asked was, hey, does anybody know David Barrett? Because, like, when I get emails from him, actually, it made me think of other ones. And you and I have talked about this, not on Drink What You Think, but during COVID, like, he had there were emails that came out that.
Yeah, this is not his first weird email. This is not his first
weird email. But, like, were lengthy kind of missives of an email, like talking about COVID, but also blending in like price increases. And so it got me thinking, I'm like, well, I'll say that at least from a consistency standpoint, he's still kind of being, I don't, whether you're going to want to call it weird or not, but like has not shown the key minds mixing in what some people might view as like personal beliefs and also business initiatives, right? I mean, so I guess there's some consistency in the way he's doing that. It still comes off as strange just because mostly, I guess anything's strange if it's like, oh, I wouldn't be naturally inclined to do it, or you don't see it very often. But it made me very curious about him. Like, and I guess the feedback I got from someone who I have the utmost respect for was she had said, yeah, I know him and I like him. Like, and we didn't get into a whole lot of other, discussions about it, but it certainly made me curious about him, like who he is and like how, what that must be like kind of being part of his team. And is that part of their culture? Like when you're being hired and onboarded, is that something that's kind of talked about? Like, hey, here's who we are from a values perspective, or I don't know. It's just kind of
they do a lot of stuff, right? This is the partner that does the like almost like a month off where they go into like a country
sabbatical
together, right?
Yep. Sabbatical together. So yeah.
But like large numbers of them, right? Go to where did they go last time? I
think it was Vietnam. Vietnam last time, was it right?
Vietnam. They went to Vietnam for a month, 3 weeks, a month
together. Like, all Expensify. I mean, there's certainly something interesting about that culture. Like it's just unusual. It's got me super curious about it. Like, I'm sure we'll get maybe a chance at some point to kind of talk to we know some other Expensify employees and really good people there that we've been close with. Like, how does these messages kind of come about? Like, is that something that you guys do all together? Like, what's the thought process behind it? Is David taking the lead on that? Like, is it I think some of the articles said that the majority of the employees there were very much for this. But it just, I don't know. It's interesting. A stance that strong. My hope is, and assuming from other people who know him, he's a good guy, that it leaves space in there for people who may have different viewpoints to still feel comfortable and still feel valued. I mean, I hope that's the case, but I don't know. That's what part to me, like I'm so, I guess I just, I want to have a conversation about things like this. Like you and I can do this and we can express ourselves here. And we can say some things that are probably, we may screw up on, but I think the overall context is broader and it's easier to describe versus, someone who goes, oh, this is someone who's doing my expense reporting software. And I get this email that just comes through like out of nowhere. That is just, jump from zero to 100 in like no time. Just a strange cadence, man.
It was really bold. It was really interesting.
What do you think is going on with their their marketing automation, like there's subscribe and unsubscribe. It's got to be fascinating.
That's got to crush their unsubscribes, right? Like both sides, like people on both sides of the aisle that just are tired of this discourse where you're like insistent that your view is the only right view, which is what he's saying is people on both sides of the aisle are tired of that, right? So I think the unsubscribes are going to be crazy. What's really going to be interesting to see if the board does anything about this, because if you've got right now, like we're starting to see this, maybe this is the next topic, this macro trend where people are starting to get into each other's lanes. Like it used to be Expensify was expense reporting and Bill.com was bill pay. Well, if I'm the Bill.com CEO right now, I'm like, launch expense reporting now, right? That's what I would do right now. All like accountants aren't typically like, as a group, I would say they were like historically heavy Republican, I would guess.
Well, in fact, I'm trying to remember from last week's Cloud Accounting podcast with Leary and Blake. They had some stats on that, and I think it's been, it was the majority are Republican and are conservative accountants. So I can't remember the stats, but if you could go back and look at last week's Cloud Accounting podcast, they've got the numbers on that.
So if you're going to say just like your partner network, somebody gives you an alternative now, like I'm just saying that's a weird, like just from a business perspective, like there's so many angles at this. Like as a business, was that the right thing to do? Like they're talking about getting into pay. There's no way. Like you just pissed off half of the firm owners at a minimum, right? Like because you just not only did it to them, but to their clients. Like it's not like they sent this to accountants. They sent this to every accountant's clients.
10 million people received the email. Yeah. So in that way, like,
crazy.
Yeah, it just is. I'm thinking about like, okay, and not that this should rule the way that he should make his decision. I mean, he's free to decide how he wants to speak, but like from a business perspective, to your point, like there's no way that the new subscribers can match the unsubscribes in this case. Is there? Like, because there's just,
I don't think so.
I mean, not that but there's no way, like maybe you draw a few people in who go, okay, wow, I like someone who takes that strong stance, but probably those who are already users, like, okay, fine, I'm cool with that. He said that, I agree with him, or I support that. That probably doesn't really get them any more licenses necessarily, but boy, there's some licenses that are going to be going away now.
Yeah, I mean, he sent I just ran the numbers. He sent that to 4% of eligible voters in the United States. Like, that's a huge percentage. Wow. There's 260 million. Like last time I was checking this the other day, because I Googled how many people vote in the elections. So like last time it was 250 million people were eligible and 160 million voted, something like that order of magnitude. So he sent this to 10 million people. That's like 4% of the eligible voters in the United States. Maybe. I mean, I guess, I don't know. Great. I don't know though.
One thing I'll say this is, I don't know that I've thought about them in this way, and I probably should have. Expensify is a really, really unusual in this space when you think about, not that they're doing expense reporting on their software, but like to your point earlier about them doing, the sabbatical as a full company. They used to do their every other year, conference, which was invite only to like Bora Bora and the crazy places like this. They're the ones who did the 2 Chainz video at Super Bowl, right? Like they take some pretty big cuts.
Well, they also are they're the ones that go, they sell totally differently. They sell like Calendly, right? They sell to the individual first. They permeate an organization and then sell to the organization, right? That's their business model. So they do everything kind of grassroots. Like it's interesting. There's some culture stuff here for sure.
Super. Yeah. Again, that's where, there's going to be a lot of disagreements, a lot of opinions about the email itself. The real story is behind the scenes in the way that company works and how they think. And, they certainly have been very bold in many ways.
And David, you're hereby invited to Drink While You Think, because we could probably talk about this for like.
We'd love to talk to you about it.
I would love to know what he was thinking and why he was doing it. Like, so that'd be crazy.
That'd be fascinating. Again, very, very fascinating. Again, I'll just tell you this. I'm not bold enough to do that. I'm not. I'm just candidly, I'm not. Like, I try to be we try to take risks and things like that. That is just not, again, I don't know if it's lack of foresight or just, I also try to think some of it is like, our values at our firm, I should not to say that ours are better, or they're just different, right? Ours are, and maybe I shouldn't say, I don't know what theirs are, but like, I would want to make sure we have a place to where whatever your belief system may be, like, that's okay. Like, make it like the Mays family dinner table, right? Fine. You believe this, you believe that. How can we coexist in a way? Now, that said too, then a lot of people do feel this way. If they're like, hey, Donald Trump is truly, if he feels that is a threat to democracy. I mean, he's speaking up about it, but wow. Again, it just blows my mind. This is one of those things I just cannot, like, to your point, there's so many angles on this thing. All right, we better move off that one or we'll never get away from it. Well, the other thing I had was Venture Atlanta was this week. Yeah, tell me, I want to get your take on what you saw at Venture Atlanta. For those who don't know, I'll do the setup on it because Matthew's really got all the scoop on it. Venture Atlanta is one of the largest, I guess, the largest venture conference in the Southeast. We've been a part of it on the East Coast. We've been a part of it for a long time. We at Acuity, the majority of our client base are SaaS startups, and we've always had a strong affinity for clients who are out raising capital from investors. It's just kind of a place that we do spend a lot of time in. So we've been involved with it for a long time. So with that as a setup, what were your takeaways for Venture Atlanta this year?
Wow. I just really enjoy, like, because there's about probably 100, 150 VCs I usually reconnect with there. And it's just not the same, like these in-person conferences versus what, like, because I think part of, like, it's just like missing QuickBooks Connect or ZeroCon this year. Like, it's just rough not seeing friends, like the people you see once a year, to like reinforce those relationships. And like being on a Zoom call, and like, I'll have to say the production was great from a content perspective. So like, if you're going to Venture Atlanta for content, like, it was great. If you're going for Venture Atlanta to like raise money and meet new VCs and like that kind of stuff, it was great. If you're going, like we go, to reestablish these long-term relationships, that was totally thrown to the wayside. Like, if you're like a lawyer, accountant, like people that have been supporting these things for decades, like these conferences for decades, like there's just no venue for that, because you're kind of like a secondary player at these conferences, right? Like, you're there to help facilitate introductions, but like with Zoom, like, you don't have the side conversations. Like, the whole time at Venture Atlanta last year, and for the last probably 8 or 9 years, like, what I do is I find our clients, I find other companies that are pitching, they tell me who they're trying to find. And I've known these people now for 10, all these people that come forever, and I'll pull them together, and I like get them sit in a room and like make those connections. And an app can do that. Like, but that doesn't, like, that's great. Maybe the app was good at doing that. I don't know. Hopefully they'll be able to meet those people over time. Yeah. But they didn't get any kind of reinforcement like, oh, I've known these guys for 2 years. They've been heads down. You need to really pay attention because they don't pitch well, but they got a real business. They don't get any of that context that we see, right? Like, all that kind of stuff that we would normally do. Or the same thing, like, they got big numbers, like they got some red flags, be careful, like their cap table is a mess. Like, none of the shortcutting stuff that happened at Venture Atlanta in the past behind the scenes from, like I said, lawyers, accountants, like people in the ecosystem happened, right? Yeah. So how do you put a value on that? Like, hopefully, like, they did the best they could, but like, there are big holes in this thing, man. This virtual world.
But it's too bad to hear that. I'm not surprised. It's not necessarily even on Venture Atlanta. It's just the way things are right now. It's I always remember you and I had both been involved with Venture Atlanta for a long time. You deeply involved. When you joined up with Acuity, I remember the very first year we kind of got to do it together. And I was like, I remember coming to you, I'm like, okay, and you've been doing all this pre-work, and one thing that you've always done is, helped coach all the different startups on their pitches, and something you've done for a long time. And so you've been involved for many, many months beforehand. And so I remember I came to you, you're like, hey, here's your badge to come to the event. And I was like, okay, cool. What do you need me to do? Like, what do I, how do we go maximize value for Acuity as a sponsor? And you were like, dude, nothing. You go help people. Like, don't even like think about like, this is not the time to go and like pitch ourselves. These are startups who are trying to raise capital. That's the most important thing to them. These are investors who are looking for portfolio companies. Like, don't get in the way of that. Help them out. Like, but no, it was like no pressure. Like, you don't have to go sell like, hey, guess what? We do outsourced accounting. So, when there aren't those mechanisms in place to say, just be like, hey, not have those side conversations. Like, well, hey, who is that just helped you out there? Oh, I work with those guys. They'd help me with my outsourced accounting, or to do all those things. Yeah, it's going to be a different experience entirely. How do you think what was your take on the startups? Like, how did they show well? Did that experience go well?
They got to do so many more, right? So like you had all the presenting companies and they showed fine. I mean, they show like they normally show. They got the Venture. They actually showed better probably because Venture Atlanta put some dollars in the budget behind the production quality for the pitches. Like they shortened the pitches to 3 minutes. They paid a firm to polish them up. So all the pre-recorded pitches look kind of consistent, right? They had time to edit it. Their pre-recorded stuff live mixed in. They did a great job on the production.
How many? So it went from, it used to be how many pitched to how many this year? Like, so numbers wise?
Normally you would have, we target 30 to 40. Okay. So they went upper end on the pitches, 40, but then they had the showcase, which is a new thing from the last few years. But the showcase companies all got to pitch. So there's no, like in everybody else, like other than it not being on the main stage, like you still watch the pitch in their thing. And that was 50 more companies or something like that, like where they had to split it up into 2 groups because it was too big for the platform. You had to go through A through L and M through Z. You know what I mean? So it was kind of crazy, so that's 100 companies you can look at, see a 3-minute pitch if you're just a VC, like going through them. But like, because everything was shortened this year, like normally I have like 150 VC list that I send like all my notes on all the companies to just help them narrow it down and like target certain things. Like that was the first year in 8 years I hadn't done that, know, so I don't know. Part of it was I didn't feel very helpful.
Yeah. Just here, it's on the websites, looking here's all the,
so those are like the presenting companies. So they had 3 categories. They had the venture stage companies, they had the early stage companies, and then the showcase companies is what they really expanded this year. The other 2 categories were big, but like the showcase companies got like almost full view this year. It's like really a whole lot better for them, right?
Yeah, it's true. So like, they haven't had all that in the past.
Okay, these are like really early stage companies that don't really have all. Like it was like, you see some clients in there, huh? Already?
Yeah, it's cool.
You gotta love the Greensy guys. Our friends at W9 Manager, they're our clients, but we know them. So
W9 Manager, cool to see John and those groups in there. And is Greensy up here? Oh, yeah, Greensy, nice.
And there's a bunch like that. Yellow Cars on the one before, Call Rail, the one before that. Oh, my favorite. I did create a poll for Venture Atlanta though. Was like, which one of the former Acuity clients is going to hit 100 million in ARR first? Because we have 5, we have 4, and then Craig made me put Rigger in there too. I said CallRail, SalesLoft, Greenlight, or Calendly. Which of our former clients is going to hit 100 million faster? That was my favorite like poll question. So
did we ever do work for Calendly?
Yeah,
we did.
We did a bunch of cleanup before Bench became. I remember Bench became their biggest customer, and then they're like, "Hey, sorry, Kenji, sorry, Matthew. Bench is our biggest customer. We gotta." Yeah.
I do remember that. I actually reached out to Tope. Tope was on, who's the CEO over at Calendly, was on a podcast I love called How I Built This. Many people who are watching have probably heard that by Guy Raz, and it is a great podcast. And I was just flipping through, and I'm like, when you hear someone who's I mean, I guess I would call Tope a friend. We're more than acquaintances. Like, he was a client and he worked down the hall from us. He's just an overall really good guy. And so it was cool hearing his story on, like, that was a global, huge podcast. And like, I popped him an email. It was just like, hey man, it was super cool hearing that. And he sent one back saying, oh, thanks. But it was cool. So yeah, there's some good, we've had some, I mean, that's probably the most fun part about what we get to do is get a chance to work with a few of those folks who,
it's like, Andy Powell opened Venture Atlanta. So that's a former client of ours.
Oh, nice.
He was the first pitch, and he got to his revenue slide, and his hockey stick revenue slide was his actuals, not his
not his projected.
Because he hit 60 million in ARR this year. So he hit 60 million in revenue this year. So everybody else almost everybody else in the conference, like, their slide at 2024 is like 60 million, and he's already there. There's like, his is actuals and theirs is projected, which everybody, like, I think I put on the chat in Venture Atlanta, I said, I believe Andy Powell is the only entrepreneur I know whose actuals are bigger than his projections. Because if you go back and look, he's such a conservative guy. If you go back and look at his deck from 5 years ago, there is no way he says he's 60 million this year. No way.
So Andy is also one of those guys too. I guess we'll just call this the Call Rail Love Fest here for Andy. But I mean, I think Calmy, yeah, those guys are all great. But and everyone loves Tope too. But I will tell you that with Andy, if somebody knows him, which not a lot of people do, Andy is not out and about. He's not, but if people know him, that is someone that universally, I've never heard someone not like rooting for him, saying like, man, them having success couldn't have not happened to a nicer guy. I mean, he's just that kind of guy. It's fun to see. And Tope's the same way too, man. Tope is, but good for those folks. That makes it just fun to see people being, succeeding like that. And Craig and the Rigger crew and all the stuff they're going to. It's going to be
on the sale. They just got bought. So much news this week in our
good friend, Atlanta tech scene. There's a lot of great news there. Our friends over there with who sit office right next door. We used to have an office at CallRail. Craig and the crew. Congrats to Rigger. Been a lot of news, about our friends Greenlight, Johnson Cook, and everybody there. So.
Oh yeah,
man, good stuff happening.
And then, Sales Loft is the last one I put in there because you can't leave Kyle out or he'll get pissed at you. So like,
yeah, you can't.
And the funny thing, I was like, oh, I should have put OneTrust in here. OneTrust still a client, but I think I don't know their numbers, but I think they might be past 100 million. But I think they were like number 2 or number 1 on the.
They were number 1 on the.
Number 1 on the Inc. 500.
The number 1 on the Inc. 500.
Yeah, so Acuity client, the 500. Gotta love those guys.
You know what we always say as accountants, like that's even though we're not building companies like that, like the fact that we get to work with folks like that is honestly just that's the most fun. You just get to see, like, ride along with them and see what happens. Those organizations is super cool. So, well, outside of the fact that wasn't great for sponsors, glad that things showed pretty well for the companies and hoping investors too. I guess.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew this. Brooke Beach was the host. She was like, there were 2 hosts.
I saw something. I couldn't tell. Like, I saw something with her on social, like her up on stage, and I couldn't tell if that was just Brooke. She
pulled it off great. CEO of Marketway, good friend, a long time friend.
Are you kidding me? Can you imagine a better host than her? Like, she's look out Oprah, look out Jimmy Kimmel, look at all of you guys. Brooke Beach could be coming for you. I mean, I'm telling you. Can you imagine someone more charismatic and just savvy like her? Look out.
She pulled off great. That was a hard thing to do because she has no feedback, right? So she's doing it up there cold, and man, that was just a great job. So,
let's rate some beers. Let me flip it back over to. Drink what you think area.
1092 Pale Ale from Twisted Brewing Company. There we go.
Got it.
I got a 3.5 on it. I'm going to give you 3.5. Did I take it up or down? Oh, about. That's where it goes.
Okay, you're on it. 3.5.
I said it before I saw it.
That's probably good to do that. Before I rate mine. Before I go to mine, I should probably rate mine. I'm gonna go. for Miss Germany here, I'm gonna go 3.25. I mean, it's probably a little gimmicky. It's a good Pilsner, but I'm not blown away by it. There's the Westphal. Oh yikes! Hard to spell this. Let's go find it. Westphalaner Premium Pilsner. Oh, we were both pretty close. Look at this. I said 3.25. It's a 3.3. Okay, so our beer judging skills are at least trending toward where most reviewers on Untappd are. Untappd, I just got some news from them. They are, I think, having their 10th anniversary coming up, maybe like this weekend or sometime soon. They're actually doing a whole bunch of really kind of cool things. Cool. Kind of a cool kind of little conference there. But well, just let me know if you ever feel like making a huge political or religious statements or something. Like let's just talk about it first.
Okay.
Over email.
Let's talk about it before we send an email to every customer and every employee that ever existed. So yeah.
Let's make sure marketing is aware, just to be prepared for what's coming if that happens. But
I bet the view rate on that email is pretty high though.
Again, us a bunch of accounting nerds, just looking at the metrics behind that one email would be fascinating. Please release those. Can you guys release those? Or just come on, David, we'd love to have you on. You are a tech stack partner, so we'd love to have you on, or just maybe send us all the metrics around that email. Would be fascinating to look at. So cool. Well, cheers, man. It's a good week.
Cheers.
Hope everybody has a good weekend. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video and send us comments. And if you'd like to come on and talk with us, have a beer, anytime. Thanks, everyone.